First, a quick reminder about pronouns. They are words replacing nouns or other words to prevent repetition, and they are placed before the conjugated verb in a simple tense, before the infinitive if there is an infinitive in the sentence, or before the auxiliary in compound tenses. For example, the perfect tense, where you have the auxiliary verb and the past participle. So let's have a look at the pronoun E, spelled Y but pronounced E. We have a sentence, she goes to the museum, and we have our subject, our verb, and then we're left with one part. And what that part does is give information about the verb. It gives information about the place that she goes to. We call that an adverbial phrase, and in this case it's an adverbial phrase of place because we've got an indication of the place that she's going to. If we wanted to replace that phrase in English, we would say she goes there. So there is the pronoun in English. Now for the French, we've got exactly the same sentence translated into French as previously. We've got Elle va au musée. Elle is the subject, the verb is va, and of course our adverbial phrase is au musée. Now our adverb is going to be I. So we have Elle va y, she goes there, literally translated, but of course we've got to worry about the position of the adverb in French. And we know that it goes either before the conjugated verb, for example, elle y va, with va being the verb, conjugated verb, underlined. Before the infinitive verb, elle veut y aller, aller is an infinitive, to go. Or before the auxiliary verb, for example, in the perfect tense, elle y est allée, with est being our auxiliary. Let's practice. We have sentences in French with their translation in English. Your task is to recreate these sentences using the pronoun I. Every time you will, of course, need to replace the adverbial phrase with the pronoun. You may want to pause the video to write down your answers, or you may want to go through the activity as I go along. In any case, c'est parti. Numéro 1. Je vais en France tous les ans. I go to France every year. The bit that we're going to replace is en France. Therefore, in the answer with the pronoun, we've got j'y vais tous les ans. I go there every year. Note that the I of je has vanished because it will clash with the Y of I. Numéro 2. Vous mangerez au restaurant? Will you eat at the restaurant? Vous y mangerez? Because of course we put the pronoun before the verb. Il adore marcher dans le parc. The answer, il adore y marcher, because marcher is an infinitive verb. Therefore, we put the pronoun before the infinitive. Ma sœur habite à Paris. Ma sœur y habite. The pronoun goes before the verb. Nous sommes allés au cinéma hier. Nous y sommes allés hier, because sommes allés is the perfect tense, sommes is the auxiliary, therefore the pronoun goes before the auxiliary. And for the last one, allons au supermarché, let's go to the supermarket, we have allons-y. Now I've been a bit naughty because when you say let's do something, you give an order almost, you use a command, and for that we use in French and in English, in fact, the imperative. The imperative is the mood that we use to give a command or an order. And with pronouns, or with this particular pronoun, it goes like this. Verb plus hyphen, so a little dash, then I. Allons-y, let's go, there. Now let's have a look at the pronoun en. The first question we should ask ourselves is, what does it replace? Because we know that pronouns always replace something. Now the pronoun en replaces a noun affected with the idea of quantity. Now to explain that, I'm going to show you some examples. So the first example is a question. Tu veux du fromage? Do you want some cheese? A certain quantity of cheese, and we've got du, which is what we call a partitive article that gives you the idea of quantity, a certain amount, some. I know in English you probably would say, do you want cheese? But implied is the idea of some cheese, a certain quantity of. In a sentence with a pronoun, we are going to have tu en veux. Do you want some? Note that again the pronoun goes before the verb veut. Other example. Tu as bu de l'eau. You drank water. You drank some water, a certain quantity of water. Therefore, in the sentence with the pronoun, we're going to have tu en as bu with en before the auxiliary verb. You drank some. J'ai des enfants. I have children, meaning I have a certain number of children. Therefore, we're going to have j'en ai. I have some. Je voudrais 3 stylos. 3 stylos is a number, is a certain quantity of pens. Therefore, in the answer with a pronoun, j'en voudrais 3. Il achète 1 kilo de pommes. We've got a precise quantity of apples. Il en achète 1 kilo. He buys 1 kilo of them. Je ne mange pas de viande. If I don't have or don't eat any meat, it means it's no quantity, but it still refers to a quantity, which is nil in this instance. Therefore, we are going to have je n'en mange pas. I don't eat any. And the last example, il veut faire du vélo. He wants to do some bike riding. Therefore, il veut en faire. Note that faire is the infinitive, therefore en goes before it because it's the pronoun. In a nutshell, you use en to prevent repeating a noun when the noun is preceded by un, une, which are and des, of course, which are indefinite articles, the word de, or du, de la, des, or even dl apostrophe, or a number. So let's practice. On the left-hand side, we have some questions in French with a translation in English, and on the right-hand side, we have the English responses. Your task is to work out the French translation. Feel free to pause the video or to complete the activity with me as I go along. In any case, c'est parti. Numéro 1. Tu veux de la pizza? We've got de la, the partitive article, that means some. In our French response, we're going to have oui, j'en veux. Yes, I'd like some, with en before the verb. I put this little word bien in brackets because although oui, j'en veux is perfectly correct grammatically, oui, j'en veux bien sounds a lot more natural. So it's something to bear in mind. Numéro 2. Vous aimez manger des fruits? We've got the infinitive verb manger. Therefore, oui, j'aime en manger with en before the infinitive verb. Combien de frères as-tu? How many brothers do you have? The answer J'en ai 2. I have 2. Ta sœur a acheté du pain. Ta sœur en a acheté. We put en before the auxiliary verb. Il ne prend jamais de dessert. Non, il n'en prend jamais. We've got ne jamais, which is a negative, but it's not a problem because in any case we put en before the verb. Prend. Numéro 6. Tu bois beaucoup de café? Oui, j'en bois beaucoup with en before the verb. Bois. And the last one. Tu prends un sucre? Do you have one sugar? Non, j'en prends 2. Félicitations, you've completed lesson 10, which means you've also completed the entire advanced course. So well done for that. I'll leave you with a little follow-up task. And what I will say now is au revoir et à bientôt for more lessons because there's plenty more I plan to do. Au revoir et à bientôt.